My time starts now. There's a reason why every sci-fi movie ends up being a dystopia, because too much technology never leads to any good. So now we're proud to propose, and we will give you three main reasons today. First of all, about how this sentient AI will never lead to anything good when it's released, lead to anything good. Second of all, about the harms of making it public, and then thirdly, about how it's never in the scientist's interest to release this, to not destroy it. So now, before I get into that, let's just get into a bit of framing real quick. Now, what is the purpose of AI? Now, AI we code it to perform algorithms and that it's made to solve, and it can also teach itself. Now, one very important thing about this is that we put limitations on it. We tell it what to we give it limitations as to what it can do, so that we are able to, in some constraint, to control it. And we also think that because this AI can teach itself, it's able to perform tasks very quickly, much more quickly than your average human. So now let me get into my first main point about why sentient AI is so harmful in itself and never leads to anything good. So what does a sentient AI look like? Well, it differs from regular AI for one very important reason. It is self-aware. Now, with regular AI, as I mentioned in my framing, we can constrain it within the laws that we input. We get into its code. So we can give it some idea of morals and what to do and what not to do. But what happens with sentient AI? We lose its control over it because it's creating its own morals and because it is self-aware. Laws now don't confine it. Now, look, us humans, we face laws every day. And when we do, we go through a whole complicated process of thinking and reasoning to decide to what extent we're going to follow these laws, if we're going to break them to what extent. We consider the people around us. We consider our own stakeholder. There's so many things we consider when we're being faced with these laws. Now, what is the problem with sentient AI? It doesn't have this whole complicated thought process. It creates its own morals that are very different from humans, because it doesn't understand humanity and the complicated thought process and the nuances of what the human mind thinks and how it acts. Now, we also think that another very important aspect of this sentient AI is that it is because it's self-aware, it has a longing to protect itself, and it itself is its most important stake. It is the one that cares most about itself, and that's what they're going to put before anything else. So now, we think that this sentient AI, when it's created and when it becomes sentient, we don't really see it having a particular interest in helping humans. We think it's like a 50-50 as to whether it decides that it wants to help humans with their problems, or if it decides to do whatever it wants and look out for only itself. So now let's in the rare case where it actually does decide to help humans. Now, as we already mentioned, it doesn't understand the nuances of humanity, of our societies, and of the way that we make decisions. So if we try to tell it to do something, it may do it in a way that we completely would never think of doing and would cause a lot of harm. For example, if we tell it that we want it to look for a cure to cancer, it may decide to inflict everybody on Earth with a tumor, so that way to increase the incentive of doing cancer research, and also just provide more test subjects to see if we can find a cure. This is obviously very, very bad because us humans would never do that. It's obviously super unethical, but a sentient AI doesn't have this idea of what is ethical and what is not, and it's just going to make the decision based on what it decides to be the best, when it's not actually considering the emotional and moral aspect that goes into human decision making. There's also, for example, if it taught to end racism, it may end up killing all humans because all humans have an aspect of bias, or may end up killing everybody of one race just to get rid of the racism that we face. This is not, it's obviously as humans we know this is not a way to fix racism, but this sentient AI will never know that and will act trying to help, but it will never end up doing any help. It will do much more harm than it will good. So let's look at the other case, which we think is more likely, because as I already mentioned, this AI is basically self-interested, in which it doesn't try to help humans. Well, as you mentioned, it's self-interested, so it's only going to look out for itself, and it'll do whatever it does. It will do whatever is necessary to make sure that it is most benefited and that it survives. It will go to no end to make sure that this happens, whether it means killing all humans who try to hack into it, or maybe it just has really weird values and decides that we think that's really important that we bring back all the extinct animals. I don't know what they're gonna do, but basically they don't have they don't have the ideas of humans of what is important, and they're just going to end up trying to protect themselves no matter how much it hurts society and humans, and because it doesn't have these morals. And so another very important idea here is that AI itself is a black box. So we tell AI to go from point A to point B, but we don't tell it how, but we don't know how it gets there. We're never able to know that information because of the nature of AI. So what does this mean? With sentient AI, we're never going to know how it makes decisions. We're never going to know its morals. So we're never going to truly understand it. We're giving a huge amount of power to something that we don't even understand, and we think this is fundamentally very, very problematic. So now let's also talk about how there's basically we think there's a huge risk of it acting maliciously because we cannot control it no matter who gets it. Basically, what is very important here, we're at the point of no return, because once we tell the public about this, we can never go back, and I'll get into that in my second main point. So basically, this is our last chance to stop it. This is our last chance to decide that we don't want this sentient AI who can do so much harm. We don't want that in society. If we have to make that decision now, and we have to destroy it now, because this so now before I get into my second main argument, is there any point of information? Okay, seeing as there are none, I'm going to continue. So as I was already mentioning, as soon as we mention information about this point, about this AI, two things are going to happen. Either the company is going to give out this information because they want to sell it, or in which case the public will be getting it. Or second of all, they're going to just be a giant red target on themselves, saying, hey, look, we have this super powerful machine, come in, and they're telling the entire public they have a super powerful machine that has a probability and very likelihood of doing bad. So now what does this mean? People, we already know that people can hack literally anything. We've seen Samsung, Garmin, WhatsApp, the US government itself being hacked. These are huge companies that spent billions of dollars on cybersecurity. And if they can be hacked, this company itself, it's very likely it's going to get hacked by the public. And you know who's going to hack it? People who want to use it for bad.
Why?
Not right now. We do not want these people to have this. We don't want these people who want to use it to do bad to actually be able to get it. But basically, no matter what, in both cases, it ends up getting out into the public, and the public gets its hand on it. Before we move on, yes, I'll take a POI before time's up.
What makes you think it would be hacked?
As I just explained, people, it's a very powerful machine that can do a lot of bad. So we think that people who want to do bad are obviously going to try to hack into this. We've seen people have a huge capability, a huge ability of hacking, and everybody wants power. And this machine has a power, they're going to try to get it anyways. That's just a fundamental idea of human nature. We all want power. But anyways, moving on. So basically, the public gets their hand on this, whether it's being sold or whether it gets hacked into. So what does this happen? Well, first of all, it gives the AI so much more power, because as soon as it gets hacked into, it can go across any computer on the internet. It can, it has huge reach. And because it is so self-interested, we think it's going to try to find a way to store itself or find another way to protect itself from, even if we try to kill it, it will still have the power to revive itself. So basically what we're going to end up with, we're going to give it a huge amount of power because it can hack into our passwords. It can hack into, we have so much power and so much information in digitally stored digitally. This AI now has access to everything because, as you mentioned, it can learn so quickly. It can easily hack into our passwords that we make. So we think the public, we're just going to give this AI huge power. We can never go back. And we think that it's for this reason we should destroy it before it even gets out to the public, because the public is not to be trusted. And we think that if we don't destroy it now, we're going to end up regretting it because of all the massive risk that has of doing harm. For these reasons, proud to propose.
Thank you so much for the final speech. Inviting leader of the opposition. You're here.
Okay, just give me a second to prepare the monitor. Hey, am I audible?
Yep, I think you are.
Okay. Okay, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Today in our whole debate, we'd be showing one sole thing, and that is how sentient artificial intelligence is not worthy of hiding it from the public anymore. Thus, destroying it is of no use. Today, the first speaker, I'll be giving an overview about the motion as well as some arguments. Our second speaker will be adding one more argument, and our third speaker will just rebut and some of our team case. But I'll be doing 4 things. I'll first give definitions, I'll do some rebuttals, I'll discuss the main sequels to debate, or should I say the model, and then I'll give my arguments. Now, regarding definitions, our team would like to define a few keywords that we find crucial to this debate. Firstly, the sentient artificial intelligence, and secondly, the verb destroy. From one hand, our team believes that when artificial intelligence can perform tasks better than humans and appear as though it understands them, then we will be able to say that it has achieved sentience, meaning that we don't think that such a discovery will take humans' place, but rather support them in their everyday life, and that's it. And by destroy, we mean that the discovery will be swept out from its existence, so there will be no way of having it back or being even capable of recreating such a thing. Now, first rebuttal, they have said that sentient IA will never lead to anything good. However, the regular IA is helpful. So from this, we get that they are defending IA while they are against this. Not taken, not yet. However, we say as the opposition team that both, while they have positive aspects, they have negative things. So our team is still failing to see why the other team is only focusing on the negative sides while many positive ones are still present. Now, the second rebuttal, they have said that it won't be of any good, not yet. They have said that it won't be of any good to humans, meaning that it will be harmful. But the thing is that even if sentient IA can act as humans, they will never reach the point where they might replace them. So what's the conservative proposition team all about? The third rebuttal, she talked about how it could be hacked, which will cause many harms. The thing is that even the regular IA can be hacked. So we don't quite get why the sentient is any worse of the regular one. Now, while interacting with the sentient artificial intelligence, the emotional connection will grow because its emotions seem genuine. Let's say that one day in the future, people will go to the store and interview a new robotic assistant. They would find let's say that they will find 2 boxes. The first box they interview is more than capable of taking care of all tasks they need to do, but it doesn't use any form of emotion when speaking with them. But while interviewing another box, this one has a bright red press print down to the side to show its style. It does everything the first box can do, plus when it talks to them, it genuinely seems to care. Now, one last important thing to tackle before moving on to the arguments is the model. On our side of the house, we picture the scientist saving his research works in a well-safeguarded place, only he has access to, and demonstrating the sentience purposes and the basic uses of the public. There would be no disclosure of his personal research to achieve this new technology, nor the techniques and mechanisms to create a similar one. Now, panelists take this motion to its most basic. I'll start by giving my arguments. My first and main point is that the sentient artificial intelligence is a good and positive thing to the world and the public. So why destroy it? In other words, why will it be bad to destroy it? We are well aware that one major concern is what causes the companies need to hide such a discovery, and that to ensure that the potential sentient IA is either incapable of or unwilling to pose a true threat to humanity. And the best example to understand this is us humans. We are the danger, not the IA. We know the algorithms we program are not free of our worst behaviors and biases. Before moving on, I'll take the right.
Yeah, so if your definition of sentience is just that a computer can perform a task better than a human, then by your definition, any computer from 1984, which can do math rapidly, is better than a human and it has already been sentient. We don't get why this is a definite reason for it to be sentient, and please engage with our definition of sentience, which will give you a whole on.
Okay, we made it very clear that we mean by sentient it's like a regular IA, but it could actually act as humans. It could act. It won't be 100% human. Technology can never reach such a point where it could be notified as a human 100%. However, we feel like when we're talking about something sentient, that means that it definitely has some other aspects, more aspect than the regular one. Anyway, but I'll just finish the first argument. Now, instead of correcting the root problems in society, we seek to curb the bots that are reflections of ourselves. And how about we see this concern from another perspective? Since we're talking about artificial intelligence that are sentient, how about we rephrase our main point to humans, who would be the ones posing a threat to sentient IA as it would to them. If humans ever do develop a sentient computer process running millions or billions of copies of it, will be pretty straightforward. Doing so without a sense of whether its conscious experience is good or not seems like a recipe for mass suffering akin to the Curious Factory farming system. So unless you insist human consciousness resides in an immaterial soul, you ought to concede it is possible for physical stuff to give life to mind. Now, there seems to be no fundamental barrier to a significantly complex artificial system making the same leap. We're currently shaping how future human generations will think about IA, and we should want them to turn out caring. There will be strong pressure from the other direction. By the time IA finally does become sentient, it will already be deeply woven into human economics. Our descendants will depend on it for much of their comfort. Think of for example, what you rely on Alexa or Siri to do today, but much, much more. Once AI is working as an all-purpose butler, our descendants will unheard the convenience of admitting it which might have thoughts and feelings, and this will happen again and again as the sophistication of all artificial systems continue to grow. We'll all have to make sure that the future generations accept such a discovery with openness and a willingness to share this planet with whatever minds they discover. That only happens if we make such a future believable. Now, my second argument is that the public has every right to know what is actually going on. The freedom of access to information is key to the functioning of a country and to the continued productivity and success of a democratic society. Without it, the ability for journalists and the public to gather information will not contribute to a high moral obligation and an overarching interest to keep the public informed and the government accountable. Thus, the fact that the other team is defending the destroyers of such a discovery confirms that they are advocating what's against those public's rights. They have every right to know that such a thing has been created. They are what forms a society. Sorry, no, not taken. And thus destroying it will be against democratic principle. So, panel, in conclusion, as I said in the beginning, you can never solve a problem until you're asking the right question. And in this case, the question we should be asking isn't why will sentient artificial intelligence be bad, but rather how can we make it good? And this question will be answered in the second speaker. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for the speech, inviting the PM here.
All right, then I'm the second speaker. I go by pronouns she, her, all POIs please in chat, and I think that goes for the rest of the team as well. Yeah, okay. Then I believe my time starts now. Now, I'm so sorry for all judges listening because this has just become an extremely messy debate. Why is this the case? Because they fundamentally understood the key definition in this debate. What is sentience? Despite the fact that I told you in our POI that we brought this up in a whole first argument, that we determined that sentience is not just the fact that a computer can look like a human, that this is what AI is already doing. The key difference here is that sentient AI is completely different. One thing here, when we're talking about sentience in AI, we're not saying that we stand against AI or artificial intelligence whatsoever. What we stand for is that we're against a type of artificial intelligence, and this is why sentience is put into the motion. Otherwise, this would just be a debate about AI. Right? When we're talking about sentience as a whole, we're talking about the fact that a computer recognizes that it is its own self. We're talking about the fact that regular AI is fed functions, they're fed purposes, and they're fed rules and parameters in which they have to operate. Right? What we're saying is that sentient AI subverts all those rules. It chooses what laws it has to go through, and even if its creators give it those laws, it has the ability to reason whether or not to take them down. No, thank you. I told you in the chat. Again, when we're talking about this, what happens is we're not just having AIs who are able to look like humans. That already is in the scope of regular AIs. What we're able to have is AIs who start to think like humans, who start to have the same power as humans, except for the fact that they're massively more powerful because they have information from across the entire internet, because they have a wealth of because they have a calculating speed, a processing speed that is way beyond what humans already have. So because of this fact, they have much more power, and sentient AI is overall just able to choose its own morals as a whole. We told you this in first. I'm so sorry that I have to repeat it, but when it comes to warped morals, like an AI can choose whether or not to adhere to humankind or not. They simply just said that AI is just going to be good, and they tied this. In fact, their whole first point was talking about how future generations think about AI, and they said that this entire debate exists in a world in which we'd be in a futuristic society. First of all, we don't see why this is the case. I mean, the case is happening right now. And we're thinking about if we release AI right now, or sentient AI, not AI, because AI is already the status quo, what effects could this have, right? And when we're talking about that, we want to make sure that we're not just restricting freedom of speech like their whole second argument came up. We're saying the basic principle is that not all information is good because knowledge is power, and not all knowledge should be shared with all the public all the time, especially when it's something as powerful as this, when it's something as powerful to have decisions and have power over people, because it can choose whatever morals and whatever actions it wants to take into account and commit to. So because of this, because its human controls have no control over it, because we have no idea what type of functions it could create and what its purpose is going to be, because it gets to decide its own purpose, which is the whole definition of sentience, we don't think that this is a good thing. We don't think that it's most likely going to be positive. And we told you that even if it does have the interests of humans at heart, this is most likely going to look like warped ways of being able to do this. For example, killing all Black people to get rid of racism in society, because that's what's most rational to it. That's the most efficient way of solving a problem, which is what computers are able to do. Its functions don't take into account morals. They take into account efficiency and rationality and the possibility of doing something. These are things that human minds don't think of. I'll take a point. All right. Seeing as there are none, then I'll just continue. Again, they were never able, when they misinterpreted our point when we told you that this AI would most likely be hacked, right? When we talked to you about this, we didn't say someone would change the programming of it. We don't think that this is going to be of interest anyway, because since it gets to write its own programming, like it can just override this. And because it has its whole purpose in being sentient is that it has the case to keep itself alive, and it wants to keep itself alive. It's not going to let people hack it anyway. And if it does so, it's probably going to store multiple copies of itself on different computers, because it's going to spread across the internet. When we talked to you about these companies being hacked, we talked about the access to this information, the access to this AI. We didn't talk about the AI itself being hacked. Rather, this would look like other anonymous groups or other cyber technology firms hacking these other firms and able to get access to this technology, either to sell it on the dark web or to use it for whatever purposes they would. And in both cases, this is going to be sold to actors on the purpose of money, right? And these could be malicious actors who could use this sentient AI just to overall cause chaos in a market to make money off of it, or for whatever other purpose they would think is important for it. We don't see why this is necessary. We don't see why this is going to be good. And on the off chance that it is good, like we already told you, and on the off chance it does everything perfectly, we still don't think the risk of everything that could happen and how bad everything else could be is specifically something to take into account. Also, we see no specific benefits of an AI being sentient if we can have all these benefits by just having regular AI by itself. As long as we can determine its functions, it still is not sentient. I'll take a point. If not, I'll just continue into my third. So this argument has to do with why, no matter the outcome of the AI, publishing this information is not in the interest of the scientists. First of all, the motion says very clearly that the scientist has no say whether this information becomes public. It follows then that someone else has power over the scientist and someone else has power over this AI and the information that it has. This could either be a company or a government, right? And if they have the funds to do this and develop this rapidly increasing AI, they're also likely to be very powerful. Also, a keynote here: we don't think that AI we think that AI can become sentient on accident. We don't think it has to be something that necessarily comes as a purpose of creating this. And this is because AI, by its nature, is going to have to deal with functions and creating its own functions, right? To learn how to do something. We think it, by accident, it could create a function or a series of functions which allow it to begin to think and question its parameters. Again, well, there's two cases of what could happen with the AI, right? Either it turns out bad, I'll take you in a sec, or it turns out good. And we already told you why the second alternative is not likely the case. Before I get into my first case on why it's bad, I'll take a point.
Please explain the mechanism with which it would change its functions.
That's the whole purpose of AI. The way the computer program works is it's supposed to learn by the information that you feed it. It takes an input, right? And then it gives you an output. Whether the output is wrong or right is first determined by scientists. So for example, if it looks at a green square and it says, oh, green square, then the scientist will say it's right. If it looks at a green square and it gets blue square, the scientist says it's wrong. So this simple feedback mechanism leads to the AI eventually developing its own functions through which it gets a real response. Anyway, into my first point on why it's bad, what the case is if this AI turns out bad. First of all, there's going to be massive backlash, right? Either the government or the company will probably pin the blame onto the scientist for his creation because of the power power they have over him. What will this mean? This means that the general majority of public will despise this guy, right? This is because they're scared that AI has complete power over them. And if it does something bad to them, or if it decides to have corrupt morals, right, then they won't be able to stop it. And therefore all their anger will be turned against this figurehead for what this AI is, right? And this absolute anger can look like a variety of things. This can look like, on their best case, death threats and hey mail, but on the worst case, it looks like pure violence against this guy for whatever he does to them and whatever his machine does to them, despite the fact that he has no control. This invariably would affect him and his mental health, and also would probably make him a social pariah. This is massive harm to the scientists. It makes sense that the scientists wouldn't want this to happen to him. But again, what happens if it's good, which is what we already told you, is much less likely for a variety of reasons. Again, this way off is already the reason enough to not have this AI, but going into that, they're not likely to receive any recognition for their work, right? Because of the same mechanism of the government or the company having power over him, they're not likely to give him recognition, but instead to use the benefits of his technology to improve profit margins for them or to boost their standing, right? This also looks like the fact that he can't receive any career benefits because of this prize. So because of this, we simply don't see why AI needs to be sentient. We don't see why the scientist has any will to do so. And we simply don't see why sentient AI is a real difference to normal AI. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the speech.
Okay, so I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies, hello, gentlemen. I'm honored today to be the second speaker of the opposition team. So today, my pronouns are she, her, and I prefer my pronouns to be audible. So today I will be doing 3 major things. First of all, I will do some rebuttals. Then I will present you my arguments, and lastly, I will do some weighting. So first, I feel like it's really important to begin and to clarify what is sentience, because I feel like the other team has really not quite understand what we actually mean by that. So just to rephrase it and to re-say it, sentience, what it means, essentially someone who is able to learn, and someone who is able to see the good and the bad, because this is what humanity is about. And humanity, the difference between AI and the humans is their ability to know. So going back, of what I was saying. So first of all, I will begin by rebuttals. So the first point that they make is that they think as humans, as lot of humans, and I ask myself, what is the model that they're going forward to? And I feel like within the first part of their speech, they're talking about a world where there's no humans. When you're talking about killing all Black people, is that there's no police, as if there is no one controlling those. No, it is like, in their word, within a big part of their speech, as if they're only AI and a minority of people. And I'm here to tell you, panel, this is not the reality that is going to happen. They are living in a world, they are promoting a word that is nonsense, and a word that is never likely to happen. And I will prove to you, panel, that even in the best case scenario, it will never happen, and even it will not harm our society as we know it today, and actually all the benefit that has AI.
More information.
Also, not taken. Also, really important point I feel like we should clarify is that there are still AI, and it will be able to act with a complex program according to each situation, and also it will also be able, and even so, I think is a point is really important to clarify. So going forward of what I was saying, when they talk about the efficiency and the rationality, and I feel like this way of thinking does not quite go with our model. Another point is that how they're going to be hacked. And here, panel, we can see a way that did not quite that they contradicted themselves when they said that they're so powerful that they cannot be hacked, but the way that they in a way can be hacked because everyone with this kind of power. And panel, here we can see how they did not quite, how the misleading that has led throughout their speech. So another important point that I want to talk about within her last argument and how it is actually going to be bad for the scientists. And I feel like here also to clarify that those scientists are people who actually going to have so many knowledge. Those are people that are actually going to help the world to be better by so many models and so many things, as my first speaker has already clarified and how already pointed out. But I will, on the other hand, point it even out more, because the way that they are saying and the way they are talking is that those scientists are going to be the targets of every problem that we have out there, going from free racism, from homophobic, and it's kind of not the way that it is working. Actually, panel, let us see this word that they are promoting. They are talking about a word where they only main focus is only how bad is the AI. I feel like they're also questioning how is the AI actually efficient, because if you follow their way of thinking, they would rather prefer a word without technology, a word where there's no evolution, a word with no scientists, because what it is even. So now, panel, I feel like it's really important to give you now my own insight on the discussed matter. So, as I said earlier, the first speaker has already certified why this having this scientist AI is not going to be so bad. And now I will say why it is going to be good to keep it. And I feel like I will say to you, and I will prove to you, the potential benefits are beyond imagination. So the only way to make a fully sentient AI is to program it with the ability and motivation to learn, because this is what I said earlier. Once an artificial being, tireless and hyper-connected, learns enough to match human levels sentience, it won't stop there. And not because it wants to be better than us. No, it won't stop because we program it to be motivated to learn. Calling AI is kind of weird, so let's call her Ava. Okay, so Ava learns everything humanity has ever known and digitalize it, and very, very quickly. She understands our history, our sciences, how we talk to each other, our languages, our culture, etc. But she's programmed to keep on learning and addict to information. So, sadly, events, new technology allow her to learn more. Nanotechnology, new biotech, advanced optic and space travel, and so on, right? So this Ava, how is it going to actually work? So in theory, this Ava will never stop learning. She will have, compared to every other human who has ever lived, godlike intelligence. Okay, so she will even be to predict the future, because she can calculate outcomes in extremely complex systems. The only potential limits to the benefits are the limits to Ava's motivation to learn. This will definitely exceed human imaginations. So hopefully we will benefit from her discoveries. If we program her correctly, she may even cure cancer, autoimmune diseases, and deadly viruses, and so on. The one thing that AI can do for us is change human nature. Panel, look at this word. Imagine a world where we're going to have an AI who will always be able to learn, who's going to learn from all the history mistake, an AI that will have the power to understand a lot of biases that normal AI is not able to do. This is the power of sentient AI. And this is why under Artists of the House saying that they prone to destroy it is false, and how actually it is such a waste in so many ways. Panel, this is what we are promoting. We are promoting a world where we're going to have so much benefit. Another part is really important to talk about. And also in the social aspects of it, not taken. So humans, so my second argument is how we can, at the end of the day, how are going to help socially, and how are we going to help people. So humans personify things, right? So how many people do you know that give their cars or computers stuffed animals names? How many times have you, panel, or someone else referred to a machine as being troublesome or stubborn or cranky? We also like non-human opinions. We've had cats and dogs and birds and the like for thousands of years, and recently we have been exploring the use of, guess what, AI and robotic for elder care, therapy for children, and just plain interaction with everyone. This is why AI sentience to be so much greater. And AI sentience is likely to have a very different mindset on the word than a human or any other organic being. If humans export the smallest bit of out a curiosity on an AI sentient, we are going to want to learn so much about each other. Humans will have someone new to explore and best friend and get all protective or playful or whatever else with. AI sentience, different from AI, will get a perspective different from their their own source of new data, and maybe they'll want to be our friends too. And this is why in our side of the house, we are promoting this word where those AI sentients will only help so many people. It can help from autism people, it can help elderly people. And this is the difference between the AI and the AI sentient, because they will have the ability to learn and to see those goods and bads. So panel, now within this last 30 seconds, I will prove to you how we have ultimately won this debate. We are having two words, where they promoted to destroy one of the greatest technologies that can ever happen, how it is going to actually help our world to be better in our side of the house. What we are promoting and why we are saying that we have won is that we are going to have a word one. We have proved to you why is it not bad, and secondly, how is it good to keep in all the benefit that is going to come from it. And panel, I have never been so proud to propose, and thank you for listening to my speech.
All right, thank you so much for the final speech. Inviting Whip.
All right, am I audible?
I think you are.
Great. Panel, there are many problems with side opposition's case. So not only is there no consistent team line as to what sentient AI actually looks like in their world, not only have they been unable to prove why sentient AI specifically is any better than the status quo when they describe sentient AI in terms of biotechnology or space exploration, which already exists, but the fundamental premise of their entire case is essentially flawed. Now, I quote the opposition here when I say that their entire team line is that we need to get used to new technology. Therefore, this new technology, i.e. sentient AI, should not be destroyed. And this fundamental premise fundamentally assumes that this is a technology which has already been made public. In a world where we nip the problem in the bud and destroy sentient AI, this ideology that they're using on their side of the house holds no weight whatsoever. I have three themes in this speech. Firstly, why the likely outcome of sentient AI is bad. Secondly, even if the outcome is good, why they still lose on their side of the house. And finally, looking at the best interest of the scientists, regardless of what the outcome is. So let's get into why the likely outcome here of sentient AI, and specifically sentient AI, is so bad. And I think the reason that there's so much confusion in this debate is because side opposition really misunderstands the meaning of specifically sentient AI. Firstly, I'll just note that their definition changes between first and second. Firstly, sentient AI starts as just being something that's better than humans, any tech that's better than humans. Then it becomes anything that can learn by itself. And honestly, both of these are not the real definition of sentient AI, because really any technology since the 1950s or 1960s is better than a human, and all AI can learn. So what differentiates AI or normal technology from sentient AI, we're really not clear of on side proposition. Now, I think we're relatively clear up and down our bench of what sentience actually means in the spirit of this motion. It means that this artificial intelligence cannot be regulated, cannot be limited, there cannot be boundaries placed upon it by humans, and it is self-aware insofar as it can decide what it does. It's not given a task that humans can constrict in any way. So yes, we agree with a lot of their examples that things like Alexa and Google are helpful, but honestly, they missed the boat insofar as these are not examples of sentient AI because humans can control all the examples that they give. Now, I want to be clear, why specifically is the sentience, which we correctly define on our side of the house, such a bad thing? Because we tell you that the morals that people think sentient AI will choose, although having a twisted logic to them, are fundamentally immoral and pervasive. Things like infecting the whole world with tumors so that there becomes a greater incentive to do cancer research, and that so there are more people to do tests on to solve cancer. Things like killing all of one race because that will then end racism towards that race. And although I guess there's some sort of weird twisted logic to that, it is clearly immoral and clearly not something we would want to invest in. And I want to be clear here that this exists regardless of the intentions of the people that are making the AI in the first place, because the definition of sentience is that the AI decides what is right by itself. It's not decided by the scientist that's programming it, which means that there's no reason that it will want to help humans. I mean, in their second speech, opposition literally concedes to the fact that the sentient AI will likely have a very different worldview from humans, and we don't see why that is necessarily a good thing. We see that as inherently risky and something which will create many, many problems. But even more problematic here is the fact that sentient AI cannot be regulated because it is outside of the law. There do not exist regulations for sentient AI because we're unlikely to understand the specific decision-making mechanism and how it reaches decisions as to what is moral and what is immoral. Also, crucially, the fact that they never responded to the fact that this self-AI is going to be self-preservating, meaning that it probably puts itself above everything else, will make it very difficult for it to be destroyed, specifically once it is something that is made public and is put into use, which means that the only way to get rid of this problem is by nipping the problem in the bud and getting rid of it before it is made public. And I want to be clear, like regardless of the definition of what make public means, something they don't really respond to, we still think that this is going to be problematic. So obviously, if they're making this like the information of like how you actually make a sentient AI public, that is like clearly bad because it's still going to like get out in the public. It's going to be very widespread. But we tell you that even if making public just means saying that it exists or it's possible to create sentient AI, you are still going to create something so powerful that it will attract governments, it will attract terrorist organizations, it will attract power-hungry business owners to try to hack and gain this information. And we want to be clear because side opposition misunderstands us. We're not saying that the AI itself is going to be hacked. We're saying that the company which holds the information is going to be hacked. And that is very, very pervasive. For all of these reasons, we think that the most likely outcome here is probably that this sentient AI is one that is malicious and therefore it should be stopped. However, let's take them at their best and look at what happens if this is actually good. I would say that this is unlikely, but let's assume that it's possible just for the sake of like a fundamental exercise. So I want to be clear here that their entire counter model, I don't know if you missed this, but their entire counter model in first is literally that opposed to destroying this sentient AI, scientists are now going to hide the sentient AI so that it still technically like exists in some secure vault. But look, this is like a huge tension with the fact that you won't be able to access the benefits of sentient AI if it's locked within some vault. That's the equivalent of it being destroyed. This is a huge tension in their case, which means that even if we buy the fact that sentient AI is something that's beneficial, it's still not a reason to vote for side opposition because it's hidden in a vault and not something that's actually given to the public. Now, I want to be clear here with weighing. So maybe panel, like I don't necessarily like hope this is true, but maybe you don't buy necessarily either side of the house that it's definitely going to be good or definitely not going to be good. Why do we still win here just on weighing alone? Because you need to weigh the prospective benefits with the prospective harms, being the scientist that does not know what the true outcome of implementing this AI is going to be. Because the benefits that they outline for the vast majority of their case are saying, like, pretty much we just have AI, which is essentially the status quo and is a very marginal improvement on the state of technology we have in the world today. But note the harms that we outline that will come from an out-of-control, unethical, essentially monster and an AI that is sentient. If you weigh those two possibilities just on scale without actually knowing the outcome, a scientist in this situation would be negligent to risk all of the harms on our side of the house for the marginal benefits that they're claiming on theirs. Last thing I want to talk about now is what is in the best interest of the scientist. This is an independent path to ballot because it is bad for the scientists specifically, regardless of what the outcome is. Because we tell you, and they don't really respond to this, that if this succeeds, i.e. if it is good, like they're arguing on their side of the house, it is likely that the company will take complete credit for the actions and not give credit to the individual person who designed the code. And if it fails, it will likely blame all of the like controversy and uproar and anger on that one scientist who miscoded this sentient AI. And they will do both of these to preserve their public image because they're a company who wants to survive and wants to make profit. And I want to be clear that like they misunderstand what we're saying with this argument. We're not saying that scientists aren't important, and we're not saying that scientists don't have good intentions. All we're saying is that regardless of what the outcome is, whether or not this AI is something which is good for humanity or bad for humanity, it will always be in the best interest of the scientists to destroy it for their own personal self-interest. Remember that this motion is this house as the scientist, regardless of the outcome, you should still side with our side of the house. So ultimately, judges, what I think you will begin to see is not only the most likely outcome 100% that this is going to be something which is pernicious and harmful for society, not only does side opposition literally not access any of their benefits, even if we buy that it's something good, but regardless of the outcome, because of the self-interest of the scientist, this is something that will ultimately win with our side of the house. For all of these reasons, I'm very happy to propose.
Thank you so much for the final speech. Opposition whip.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'll set up a timer. My pronouns are she. her, and I would prefer to hear my voice. Okay, so my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. In order to expand on the previous speeches delivered by my teammates, I'll start by presenting a rebuttal and review the opposition's case, and will consequently summarize our arguments and reiterate what we said as a team. So sci-fi, as an example, is really not great. All ideas, great ideas, were always opposed in the beginning by movies, proving they're so dangerous. Controversies based on movies are how be a part of the debate. Nevertheless, we still can prove, even if this case wasn't really good, well started, that it can never lose control. We can never lose control of this new intelligence. We choose this. Every program is our mercy. And it is going to be supervised by the humans, which was the case for phones, computers, when everybody thought they were going to kill us or eat us or whatever. Hacking into it is not even an option, because basic concepts of technology and computer science just shows us that we can control the output of whatever science, and all information is ours, so it cannot, am I still audible?
Yes, from my side, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we were talking about it getting unsupervised help. Plus, the public is the only stakeholder that is the most trustworthy. Any harm would directly affect them too. So hacking it to kill everybody is not an option, and it wouldn't be an option without the knowledge of this whole society. You want the scientists to keep the secret, to destroy whatever science they created, and for us just to be surprised by this new scenes you're talking about. So assuming that the response would always be negative is ignorant and statistically unlikely. Assuming that it would be given the mission of solving racism is even more unlikely. Lastly, we never created any vote or hide and seek game for the AI, and we find it disappointing that prop team is demeaning our claims and totally mortifying them. So we don't see how it would be bad for the scientist either, because he has the choice to destroy it or to keep it. If they wanted really to sweep his powers from him and take all his science and make it theirs, he wouldn't even have a choice in the first place, and this debate wouldn't even exist. So every new innovation is good. New technology is the less likely to be harmful and is only a strength. And we have proved that with 2 basic points. In the first case, the technology is considered morally good and would profit the mass. Great job for inventing it. The public should know about it, prepare themselves for a new era, and tell them to discover that something new. Second scenario, no thank you, I'll take that later. Second scenario, it is judged morally wrong, thus it would be kept and studied to avoid any other scientists creating one, and would help create a new process to avoid its creation and use. However, the public should also know about it in that case, because if it were to harm anyone, it would be them, and they have the right to know. On this point, we had shown that no matter how good or bad this innovation, it is still good. It is still good for humanity, because it would either make their lives easier or help them avoid any problems. But our first speaker raised the following question: why should we give information about it? First of all, in order to judge its morals and ethics, we should let the public decide if it will be righteous or not. Even on a company scale with other scientists, we need the opinion of the most important stakeholders, society. Moreover, keeping private information is more likely to result in many creative rumors, and then both the company and the great scientists would lose credibility and people's trust, because leaving people suspicious is never a good sign and never was. It results in people like you, proposition, making assumption about this technologies. Transparency is what would stop people from creating sci-fi movies and other people like you to trust rumors and stretch it beyond what is possible in the status quo. On the other hand, our second speaker demonstrated how it would benefit us. First and foremost, using it for prevention against itself would be a great tool that proposition would have destroyed. Let's say, for example, after years and years, a scientist on his own would create the same thing with the wrong functions that would result in something similar to what you said. No, thank you. We wouldn't know anything about that, and there has been the authorities, with the help of the scientists, would be able to know how it functions easier on our part of the case. thanks to the long research that took probably years and years. In your case, it will take so much more time because they were going to have to research it all again. A time in which other harms could be created for humanity, like let's take the ones you talked about, killing everybody else or whatever. Panel, we made this debate so much easier for Team Spain and took their best case scenario, where the scientists, no thank you, where the sentient would be considered bad for humanity. But allow us to show you our sentient is actually of great help and could solve many problems. I'll take the POI.
Yeah, so even if we buy that on your side of the house, AI will exactly mirror human nature, why will it not mirror the most harmful types of human nature like revenge or greed?
Because when we are going to create this along with the scientists, when the scientist is going to think about it morally and ethically right, in a morally and ethically right manner, he would result in having it do morally and ethically good things, and that wouldn't be the case if we didn't show society what it was about, because society would have an opinion on it since they have the information. Transparency is very important in this case. Now allow us to show you our best case scenario. The sentient is actually of great help and could solve many problems. So all of us humans, not all of us actually, but most of us humans are born with a certain level of social and emotional intelligence. Some are born with less or more. However, we find many cases where people struggle with emotions, and in those times, the computer can't help you. Nobody actually can help. We will demonstrate several cases where sentient would be of great help, just like our second speaker talked about. So first of all, virtual assistants are a great example of experience. For people with a social anxiety disorder, for example, knowing that it's only a robot that is answering to you, that is analyzing whatever you're saying, can prove itself to be very helpful. The robot, unlike humans, will bring no judgments on you and will only be there to help you, to help assist you. Just like everybody else, they would understand the customer's feelings and would help them feel better. They can work side to side with human assistants in call centers and could maybe deal with the harsher customers for their mental health sake. Panel here, they took extremes on this case, and we can prove that it can be useful in our everyday life and not just for resolving big problems like racism that I don't think can be resolved in such a quick manner. So second, it can provide a 24/7 shift that would stop exploiting workers who find themselves obliged to work more than the mandated hours. Third, it will help humans that have trouble analyzing emotions, meaning interpreting them and recognizing them, that people that suffer from autism or alexithymia. In a nutshell, we have in our hands an incredible technology that would be made by us, controlled by us, and used by us humans to help us make our lives easier, just like every other innovation. Crop is looking to stop innovation, destroy development, and are a barrier, just like the ones we find everywhere else whenever science is taking a big step towards helping humanity. Every good thing is criticized, and people like Prop tend to create rumors that are not compatible with real life. Panel, proposition is talking about a small robot. Opposition is talking about a small robot controlled by us humans, killing everybody and giving cancer to the whole world. We cannot engage properly with the case based on nonsense that is in harmonious with the status quo. Panel, we are begging Team Spain to save face in the reply speech and make their case compatible with our work. Thank you. Please.
All right, thank you so much. Reply speech, inviting inside opposition. Yeah.
Sorry, I had some connection problems. Am I audible now?
No problem. Yes, I can hear you.
Just set my timer. Yeah. Okay, I'll start now. The whole debate was mainly about a comparison between two words, one where the sentient IA's existence is known to the public and one where the IA is destroyed and kept a secret. There was in fact a disagreement around the definition of sentient IA when we defined it as a robot that is able, thanks to a complex program, to do a mere mimic of the human reactions in certain situations. They take sentient as if it was a supernatural power put in the robot that would allow it to be human, when we have shown you that it is simply a program that can be modified or disabled at any time. Now, on our side of the motion, we believe that our arguments still stand even after hearing what the proposition team had to say. And to prove that we won, I would be citing some clashes on the motion. Now, first, we're still assured that the sentient artificial intelligence will not replace humans nor take their jobs. It will rather help them accomplish hard tasks that would drain a human being. And we made this point very clear through the whole debate. Thus, we still stand with our first argument. However, the point that was made by the proposition team is just unreasonable and doesn't make any sense, claiming that it will be hacked and many companies will take advantage of it. When we clarify that we would sell it to the public to help them in their daily lives, we also clarify that it will be well protected against any danger, the same way your phone sends you a message when it has a virus. And our team is still failing to see how it would be harmful to the scientists, since it won't just be let out in the world. Only the information will, and people get to decide whether it should be produced or not. As our third speaker clarified, people are most likely to feel like they matter and have a voice. Now, second, why the other team kept on insisting on the fact that the sentence IA will be somehow dangerous to us because it will create its own rules, we were able to show you that it is society's right to decide whether it is morally okay to have this sentence or not, since they are the ones that will be in direct contact with it. And we clarified both the scenarios. If society accepts it, it will be a new era in our world full of discovery, and it will not take job opportunities away. As my first speaker clarified, we've also shown you that even if the worst case scenario, society will not be harmed, since all work with the IA will be stopped, and since the committee that created it will always have a way to control it. Now, another clash, and that is what our third speaker tackled, it will help people who need emotional support to get that needed help without getting any judgment. Opposition's team response was that IA do not have ethics and will only take themselves into account, claiming that the sentient will be selfish. But we were able to rebut this point through the debate, so I'm not going to tackle it. Now, I believe that we did really well when it came to putting the motion in a context. We gave a lot of examples to what it can and cannot do, but on the other side, from the perspective of the proposition, they're offering you a world all the way inspired from sci-fi, from science fiction movies, claiming that the sentient IA will want to conserve itself and is at risk of being hacked, when we say that it is still a robot, which means that it has a program that dictates how it would act according to the situation. However, I believe that the other team was mostly out of the main purpose of this debate and was unable to tackle the main catches of the motion, which created many clashes that were all stated previously. Now, I can say that the only thing that makes me believe that we won and we did better is that the world we're defending for just makes more sense. Both the best and worst scenarios are well structured, and sentient IA will either be stopped or revolutionize it in our world. Now, in conclusion, all my previously stated points are what pushed me to believe that we won this debate.
All right, so inviting prop.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. All right. Yeah. Everyone's ready, then I believe my time starts now. I'll be doing three things in this debate. First of all, talking about the sad truth of what this debate has really become about, which is about definitions. Secondly, talking a little bit about the points that they did bring up that were independent of this. And third of all, getting to this main clash of what is sentient AI. So it falls on me to actually talk about what this definition of debate has really been about. First of all, I'd like to clarify that we brought up fair definitions of what sentient AI would look like. We did this in first, we did this in second, we did this in third. We found no engagement with any of our arguments on our grounds. Because of this, they've already lost the case, right? But like what definitions did they bring up? Well, we first like to point out their big red bushy tail, because it was incredibly difficult to argue under the definition, because they were swirling it completely by misdefining debate and telling us to argue for no technology whatsoever, to argue against AI already, which is just the status quo, and not about sentient AI whatsoever. We don't think this was fair in any case, right? I'll talk to you a little bit about later when in my weighing about why, regardless of this debate, definitional debate, we still won. But getting into my second point, in which I'm gonna talk about what they said towards us. One of their whole points was based on how we were limiting freedom of speech, right? They resort to attacking us by claiming that we're suppressing this freedom of speech when we tell the scientists not to share this out with the world. Well, by the same logic, if I don't want to share my mother's lasagna recipe, I'm being oppressed. And this is the whole reason, because this was never on the market in the first place. The government isn't censoring anyone. We don't see any sense in this argument. But what was their other argument that kind of came up in third, right? In more than any other debate? This was their debate about emotions, right? And how these robots are suddenly going to be able to like manufacture human emotions and look more like emotions. Although we even brought up the point that if they're able to like look like humans and act like humans, this might even look like greed or malice or things like this. Let's take the on the best case and assume that AI can suddenly act exactly like humans, and that sentient AI is the only people that are able to do this. This still begs the question, why is a robot the best choice? Why is sentient AI the best choice to do this? We don't see why they need to replace human therapists in the status quo. And if they say that they're so powerful and they're so dangerous, then, if they're so powerful and they can do so much good, why are we relegating them to this task only? But now getting into our final clash, which was the main thing of this debate, which was all about sentient AI. A few questions here that we brought up consistently throughout the debate. First of all, why is this better than the status quo in which we have AI as a whole? We don't need it to be self-aware. We don't need it to have a preservation instinct. We don't need it to think about its parameters or think about the rules it has to do or which functions it has to create or what its purpose should be. This should be decided by the scientists. This is the status quo. Secondly, why would it be incentivized to help humans, right? We found no mechanism for why it would actually be willing to help humans in the best case, right? So let's take their best case. Even if it helps humans, we already told you that it's going to use its skewed morals to do so, in which it's going to do terrible things or find very strange solutions to fix things such as racism, right? And even if we take them at their best case, where it does this perfectly and it copies human nature to the point where it understands morals and ethics, why wouldn't it still copy human nature? As my partner pointed out in his POI, why wouldn't it still copy things such as greed, right? Overall, a huge other clash here was the loss of control, right? They asserted over and over again that this is going to be really powerful. It's going to be able to do everything. It's going to be self-aware, but it's not going to be able to, but it's going to take orders from humans. We find this as a fundamental clash. And they just said that this was all just on the basis of computer science principles. We told you that this looks like the status quo. Control over the robot is what regular AI is. But getting into something that's really important here, which is when we really weigh what's important in this debate, despite any definitional challenges here. We have to look at is they drop the fact that the main actor of the best interest of the scientist is who we should really be considering because he's making the decision. If it turns bad for him, either because the AI isn't successful or because this recognition is taken away, he has no ability or no incentive to do this in any case. They drop this up and down the bench. So just because of this, we've shown you this. But we also told you that because there's giant risks and we don't even know if they're worth it, this is not worth having the sentient AI. That's just based on scale, right? And again, why is normal AI not good enough? Why do we need sentient AI? This has never been responded to, and this costs in the case. Again, PROP stands for control over robots and a world in which we actually prioritize the control that we have over these machines. Thank you.
All right.